All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Iron Mike podcast. I'm your host, Mike Wollard. Little life update for you. Our air conditioning unit has gone out. If you follow me on social media, you see me post about it. Not the most exciting of times. So, quick recap of living situation. So, when Allie and I got married, we moved into her parents' guest house, which she had already been living in. Moved into there while we pay off my insanely high student loans. All donations are welcomed. And so we moved into there. And so in the guest house, I mean, you're talking, 750 square feet or something like that. And and so there are, I don't know what I'm saying, there are like these LG wall units on the wall, one in the living room that kind of blows towards the living room and in like the kitchen area, and then there's one in our bedroom. And Sunday night, laying in bed around 11:15, I kind of just glance up and see that the lights aren't on. I was like, well, dang it. And before when this has happened, I flip the breaker, I do whatever, and that kind of fixes the issue. Well, I go and I flip the breaker a couple times. We can't get them to turn on. And this is just like my nightmare. I mean, I'm starting to sweat just like thinking about it now. And even then, before the house had even like warmed up, I was already like starting to sweat because I could just anticipate what was about to happen. And sure enough, I pulled all the fans from downstairs. So normally up here in my office, for those watching on YouTube, I mean, I have a window unit essentially. I mean, it sits on the floor that's to my right that blows really cold air, and it's supposed to be able to heat, like 300 square feet of space or whatever. Well, obviously, as you can see in the camera, there's not 300 square feet of space up here. So you'd think it'd be an ice chamber up here. And it really only is if you're right in front of it. Like, it blows really cold air, but I mean, it'll get up to 88 up here. It's miserable by 3 or 4 o'clock. And so usually I have like a secondary fan over here to my right that kind of like sits in front of it, but at an angle. Because in theory, I'm like, cool, it'll suck in the cold air from there and then blow it onto me. But that makes it really difficult with recording podcasts or streaming or anything else, because then the wind blows right into my mic, and so we can't do that. And so anyways, we come, I guess all day Monday, it's pretty brutal, pretty miserable. We've got every fan that we own, I guess. So is it, actually, it was Saturday night, because Sunday afternoon, coming home from church, we just had all the fans. Is that right? Yeah. So Sunday afternoon, we had all the fans just like pointing in the living room. Miserable. And actually, yep. Okay. You know what? It doesn't matter. We're moving on. Regardless, our AC is broken. We have every fan in existence downstairs blowing in different directions. I slept there the first night, and then the guy comes. So yeah, it did happen Saturday night, because then the guy came on Monday to look at it. Basically was like, it's your outdoor like unit that kind of powers everything. It isn't giving me an error code. It's just doing this little spinny circle thing, but not really giving me any answers. So I think it's something electric wise. It's probably like your circuit board or motherboard or whatever in there. We don't keep those parts on hand, so we're gonna have to order it, from China where they're made. Who knows how long that's gonna be? Like weeks, months, we don't know. And I was like, if it's months, if even weeks, y'all. He dropped off essentially what I have upstairs, which is just another floor unit. And granted, it is like, it's cooling our bedroom very well, but our living room is still a furnace. Upstairs is still as halfway miserable as it is a lot of times. I mean, even before the AC breaking. And so all of that to say, pray for me. It's like 3 straight nights in a row of not good sleep. Lots of caffeine, lots of coffee, iced coffees. Actually, it's warm this morning, but that's because we went to Need to Breathe in One Republic last night, which was awesome. But you've got, every 18, 19-year-old kid in existence with either Juul pods or sneaking in marijuana, whatever the case is. And so you're just like covered in that smell. You're breathing it all in. And so when we got home probably around 12:30 last night after showering, going to bed, and then woke up at 5:30 this morning because that's when Simon wakes me up. So warm coffee this morning. But even those people watching on YouTube, I mean, my face is just so like swollen. The allergies are bad. The sleep is bad. We're in a tailstorm right now. But that is not what today's podcast is about. Today was actually, I got a fairly decent, it's a little bit of like a research roundup, especially since last episode I talked a decent amount about supplements. And so this time around, a few updates on certain supplements, either that I've mentioned before, and there's new information kind of out and about, a couple that I haven't touched on at all. And then I also wanted to touch on a comment on one of my videos yesterday, and just cardio being superior for fat loss. So let's actually jump in there. I know that's what a lot of people want to hear anyway, so I'll be nice and do it first. And so I put out a post yesterday, one of those trendy reel type things. It's like 3 things you need to know, and that carbs don't make you fat, cardio is not superior for fat loss, and what was the third one? I don't remember the third one. Doesn't matter. And so I hope that the guy that commented this, there's no way he's watching this. It was some random, because the reel ended up catching the algorithm and getting like 6,000 views or whatever. Woo, famous. And so this guy commented that that was cap. For those who don't know, it's just if you say something's cap, it's like there's no way. Like if you're capping, you are. Golly, how do you explain that? I don't know how to explain it. It's like that's garbage. That's not true. That's whatever. Like you're making it up. That sort of deal. And so, anyways, he said that what other exercise can you do? Where you can burn 2,000 calories in 2 hours. I'll wait, and was just kind of a jerk throughout the comment. So I deleted it because no toxicity on my page, and it's my owner, and I'm the owner of the page, and I can delete comments if I want. But it brought up a good topic for the podcast, and kind of talking through like when cardio is good, when it's not. For starters, if you're in a deficit and you're trying to, for starters, cardio can be a great tool for fat loss, for weight loss. That and just to get you in a deficit. I won't even specify whether you're losing fat or weight or whatever, because there's a lot of factors that kind of play into that. But it is a good tool for putting you into a caloric deficit. Anytime I love my food, and so anytime that it kind of gets down to the nitty gritty of making dietary adjustments, or I'm hitting plateaus and things like that, my cardio goes up, my food rarely goes down. Within reason. I like to make sure that I'm keeping my food as high as possible, and eventually, I'm not going to walk on the treadmill for an hour and a half to 2 hours. So yeah, I'm going to have to drop the food eventually and kind of bring my carbs down and whatnot. But as a general rule, I add in cardio before I touch my food. Not everybody's that way. Some people, if their food is already super low, then they have to add in cardio, but some people would rather, not do any extra movement and just kind of have their nutrition adjusted. But that can get kind of wonky too. So you just kind of have to find that balance. But so that's the good side of cardio. Obviously it's nowhere in my posts I ever say cardio is bad. Nowhere in my posts I say that cardio is not useful. I said that cardio is not superior, and cardio is not superior for fat loss. Those were the 2 key things, was the adjectives I used and what its purpose was for. So superior wise, lifting, resistance training, and controlling your diet is always going to be superior. He even said it, 2 hours to burn 2,000 calories. How do you progressive overload that? Eventually your body's going to get used to it. And so the thing with cardio versus resistance training and lifting weights, resistance training, whenever you get to a point to where these 80s on dumbbell bench press are getting kind of easy, I'll go to 85s. There's no time factor that changes or increases. But running, running 5 miles in X amount of time, all you have to do is run faster / harder. But in most cases, if you're running for a time limit and trying to keep the same pace type thing, the only way to progressive overload, running at 4 miles an hour, is to run longer. And so nobody has time to eventually be running unless you're training for a marathon. Most of you don't have time to run for 4 hours a day, or even 2 hours a day. 2 hours of just cardio, I would rather die. But again, eventually that 2 hours of cardio is not going to burn 2,000 calories anymore. It's going to 1,900, 1,800. Your body's going to get acclimated to that kind of work. And so now you're putting in all that effort for no return, or at least a less of a return. And then on top of that, cardio, you can look at marathon runners versus sprinters, or like is like my favorite analogy. Marathon runners always very skinny, very small, very lightweight. You've got a long distance to run. Sprinters are jacked out of their minds normally, massive quads, very explosive, and so being able to, I use those as a comparison for like what muscle is able to do, and kind of the difference between like long distance running versus those quick explosive movements, and so being able to use cardio as a tool for a deficit for fat loss, but there's no afterburn. There's no like long-term like heightened muscle protein synthesis. There's no building muscle to increase your metabolism. If anything, you're losing muscle during those long bouts of cardio. So really making sure that even if you are doing cardio, the resistance training has to be there. Your diet has to be there. So plenty of protein to make sure that your muscles are not only repaired, but you're essentially preserving them, making sure that they don't break down during those long bouts of cardio. I'd probably at that point, we'll talk about in a little bit, but supplement with essential amino acids and make sure you kind of have that insurance policy. There's a lot of do's and don'ts, but that's the superior. That's the superior argument, but also the fat loss argument. When you're running like that, you can't control. Once your body blows through those carbs, now what? Yes, like you're going to burn through some fat if you're in a caloric deficit, but also in the short term, you're breaking down muscle. Like things like that are happening as well, and you can't control that as easily as if when you're resistance training, you're making those micro tears, you're building them back stronger. So those are benefits of lifting. Not to mention again the increase in BMR, your basal metabolic rate, by having more muscle. Running does not provide that for you. So that's why I said it's not superior. I didn't say it's not a tool. It definitely is a tool, but it is not the superior route for fat loss. Great in the short term, but does nothing for you long term from a caloric burning standpoint. So there's my spiel on that. Today's society, if you have any sort of standpoint, it means you hate like all the other. Like if I don't think cardio is superior, it means I don't like cardio at all, which is not true. And so, but that's just kind of how society views things. If you don't support something, then you hate everything else. For me, I'm pro-life. So which I will not, we're not going to dabble into this, but I'll just touch on it. I'm pro-life. So that means if I support pro-life, that means I hate women and I hate everybody after they're born, which is also not the case. But that is just how society portrays it, and it's sad, really. You can't have. There's no middle ground for any arguments anymore. And so, anyways, I won't open up that can of worms. I kind of like open the cap just a little bit, just open the crease, but we won't open it full wide. So the next few things that I'm gonna cover, just some quick like supplement updates, little things like that. Jeff Nippert put out a video, really just kind of like 5 pointless supplements. It was super informative on a few of these, just either updates on things I've said in the past, or even just kind of going over some ones that I haven't touched on at all. So one of the first ones is going to be test boosters. These are not injections. It's not testosterone replacement therapy or anything like that. These are just your over-the-counter $40, $50, $60, sometimes $120 test boosters. And they have a lot of different ingredients in there. Usually it's some sort of proprietary blend of any number of things. You're going to have zinc in there. Fenugreek is like the big one throughout the studies that may have like some benefit, but some of the other like roots and things that they throw in there are all pretty much garbage as well. Fenugreek seems to be the only one that doesn't have studies necessarily against it, but maybe has like 1 or 2 like in support of it type of deal. So still super early on, still very under researched in that regard, but for the most part across the board, those test boosters are a waste of money. You're better suited if you do have low testosterone to just make sure you go have your test levels run. Again, I won't go on my tangent again, but if you're a young kid, you don't need testosterone boosters. I shouldn't even have to say it. I'll never forget a guy coming into GNC when I was working there. He actually called ahead of time and was like, "Hey, do you have Cerevital?" Which Cerevital is, it's funny because it was always in the hair, skin, and nails like beauty area of GNC, and my manager and I never understood why, because it says like human growth hormone or whatever on the front. and it was like $100. And we're like, A, HGH is not that cheap, but B, we would not sell actual human growth in the store. And like you look on the back, and it's just like a spectrum of amino acids that are just helping with growth of. I mean, it was maybe it doesn't say muscle mass, but it definitely, like I said, like lean mass increase and stuff on the box. But we assume that I guess it's just talking about their mass of like the hair and ability to grow it or something, because it was just amino acids, so it's not gonna do anything for you. But this guy called and was like, hey, like, do you have it? I was like, yeah, we've got a couple. He's like, okay, cool, like, you have to be 18 to buy it. And I was like, I mean, yeah, but this dude's like 40, so I didn't know why he was asking. So he comes in and he was buying it for his like 13-year-old son, and I was just like borderline going to call Child Protective Services. Like, I just couldn't believe that like your kid hasn't even finished going through puberty yet, and you're trying to put him on human growth. He's like, well, what do you recommend? Like, like test boosters or anything else? I was like, dude, food and working out. Like, what else would you possibly want to put your kids through to where by the time he's 18, like, he can't reproduce anymore and his body's not producing its own testosterone? I mean, you can ruin so many things. I said I was not going to go on a tangent. I went on a tangent. But by taking so many of these supplements, you've got to be super, super careful, especially as you get into the higher end stuff, the heavier stuff. Like, if you're not doing things properly, if you're not, if you're running steroids or SARMs or anything and you're not post-cycling correctly, I mean, you can really screw yourself up. So there's a particular 21-year-old, that may or may not watch. If you are, there's your advice. You've already seen some side effects. Anybody else that's kind of in that neighborhood of, I mean, if you're in your 20s, once you start getting into your 30s, I mean, by 40, it's pretty much standard that your testosterone's dropping at that point, kind of year over year. And so that's when you can kind of look at getting TRT. There are obviously exceptions to the rule where the testosterone is lower way earlier in life. And yes, you can get TRT, but some people just do it as a cheat code to try to put on muscle quicker and to things like that. And it is not worth it. Like, good grief, I can't believe I have to even say it. Especially if you're not competing or doing anything else. You're lifting for fun and for the aesthetic and for your bros. And like, why hop on a cycle of any kind, whether it's just getting test injections or actually looking for something harder? Like, the risks the risks definitely outweigh the rewards in that sense. All right, tangent over. Moving on. Don't take over-the-counter test boosters. They're wasting your money. Update on like BCAAs and things like that I've talked about. Now they've kind of come out with like essential amino acids. So essential are the ones that are not made by your body, so you need it from your diet. That's kind of like your full spectrum of them. BCAAs are just your branched chain amino acids, your leucine, isoleucine, and valine. Those are your three that are like more specifically, like leucine triggers muscle protein synthesis. But like some people take leucine just by itself. Well, when you do that, it actually lowers per a couple studies that he cited, that taking that leucine triggers muscle protein synthesis, but it alone reduces the other BCAAs and kind of like suppresses them a little bit. So making sure that you're taking like all three at once. But at the same time, people really focus on the BCAA side of things, but then don't have the rest of the amino acids, which also help with muscle building. Even though those three are more specific to triggering muscle protein synthesis and all that, you still need the other amino acids for triggering certain things to happen in the body, et cetera, et cetera. And so the way he kind of described it is, taking like BCAAs by themselves is kind of like, or even just leucine by itself, it's kind of like having the keys to a car with no gas in it. And so just making sure that you're kind of doing everything. Again, as a whole, BCAAs, essential amino acids, all of the above are not necessary. But if you wanted to take them as somewhat of an insurance policy, maybe if you're doing fasted cardio or working out fasted, long periods of time throughout the day where you're not eating, drinking some essential amino acids during that time can benefit just in, again, an insurance policy, making sure that you're not, using muscle as energy, nothing's breaking down, that sort of deal. But again, if you are eating a high protein diet, you're drinking your shakes, things like that, making sure it's spread throughout the day, essential amino acids, any sort of supplement like that is pretty unnecessary. Fat burners, moving on to them. This will be a short one because they're all junk. They either focus on caffeine, so a super stimulant to get you to burn more calories, things like that. One of the ones that always drives me nuts is we used to push it at one of the gyms I worked at was Celsius, and Celsius has on there that it increases metabolism, things like that. I think they did a study, or I read a study on it, that I think over the course of like a 3-hour period that it was like a 96 calorie boost. So you're looking at like a 32 extra calories an hour boost in calorie burning, like from that. And again, it's most likely from the caffeine because it speeds your heart rate up and everything else, and the energy that you're getting from the caffeine, blah, blah, blah. So fat burners are pretty much all junk across the board. If they're not focused on caffeine and the stimulant side of things, increasing your heart rate, getting you to burn those extra 30 calories an hour, then it's, they're very much like a hunger suppressant. Not to mention just kind of across the board as you hop on any sort of a supplement stack, what happens? You become consistent in your diet, you become consistent in your workout. Very rarely do people hop on supplements and everything stays exactly the same. And if that is the case where you are doing that, then it's probably the right time for you to be on supplements. Chris Bumstead talks about that a lot. He didn't hop on, whatever steroid cycle he runs to win Mr. Olympia. Like he didn't hop on that to cut corners. He was already at his genetic potential. He was already doing everything that he needed to do, muscle training wise, eating wise. He was at his limit. And so those steroids help push him beyond that and help him to get results that he normally couldn't have. The habits were there. The work ethic was there. Everything was already in place. Was doing that year on year on year and just was at his limit. So that helps him get beyond that. He's very open and honest about that. And not to mention the cycles and stuff that at least that he runs is much smaller than what society would lead you believe. And some guys are way overkill, some guys way underkill, but regardless, that you want to be in a place to where everything is kind of going right already, and these supplements are literally gap fillers. Or for me, that's what protein shakes are, and that's what they should be for you. If you can't eat whatever your protein goal is for the day, cool, a shake kind of supplements that. Yes, an argument can be made for a shake post-workout just because it's absorbed quicker and more efficiently. Pair that with some carbs, and you're better off than eating whole foods. But at the same time, whole foods are still going to be good also. And so it's really just it's making sure those habits are in place before you're throwing all these supplements on there. A, so you know what works and what doesn't. But B, those supplements aren't going to be there forever. If budget cuts happen and you can't afford your supplements anymore, now what? Are you going to lose all your gains? Are you going to stop eating well? Are you going to stop working out? And so those are super important to make sure that you're. Sorry, I almost overlapped the ending of last time, and before it's kind of messed up the audio, so I think we're good. But yeah, so making sure that you keep the main thing. Keep what's important. What light went out? Something changed. Something's different. Anyways, doesn't matter. And lastly, I think, beta-alanine. Beta-alanine I kind of wanted to cover. It's in a lot of pre-workouts. 3.2 grams is kind of the industry standard. It's, what's been researched type of thing to be, what's high quality and what actually is going to give you the benefit. But what comes with beta-alanine, it helps with endurance. It helps with your ability to have continued reps. What beta-alanine actually does is suppresses the acid buildup in your muscles, so that the lactic acid that builds up, the burning, things like that, it delays that kind of onset so you can push through and get more reps. However, it does not affect reps and exercises and things like that outside of or beyond until 30 seconds or more type of situation. So very long bouts of endurance. Maybe you're doing 60 seconds of body weight squats into 30 seconds of whatever, and you're kind of doing like circuit type stuff. That's when beta-alanine is going to be most useful, or useful at all, really. If you're lifting on you're doing a 3x3 on bench press, beta-alanine is going to do nothing for you other than some tingle at the beginning of your workout. It really throws me off that it got super dark behind me, and I'm not sure why. My camera must have adjusted a setting or something, I think. Anyways, and so making sure that you're knowing why you're taking a lot of these supplements. That's my big reason for kind of going, talking about them last week and then this week is, a lot of people, it's like, hey, what's your stack? Hey, what's your whatever, which I am going to put a YouTube video out about kind of the stack that I'm running right now. And just, a little bit of a continuation of me talking last time with like my hierarchy of supplements and, so what I am currently taking now, what I think is necessary, what I'll kind of do differently, in the coming months, et cetera, but making sure that you're knowing what's in the supplements that you're taking and why you're taking it. It's very important instead of just going into GNC and asking him, what his favorite is and going with that. Even asking me what my favorite is, what my favorite might be is, either too strong for somebody else or it's, doesn't taste good or doesn't hit as hard as what somebody else might be using. And so a lot of it's personal preference. One of my buddies, Trent, actually takes like a pre-workout that already has his 5 grams of creatine monohydrate in there. So, I mean, there's a lot of supplements out there. Maybe one day I'll make my own supplements, Iron Mike supplements. I think that'd be cool. But anyways, beta-alanine's great. Good for more of the high endurance type stuff. You probably won't see any benefits, any sooner than that. Any sort of hypertrophy type work is not going to be what you would really need the beta-alanine for, but it's not necessarily bad. You're just probably not getting the full benefit unless you're doing exercise bouts of 30 seconds or more. So I was going to cover some realistic expectations as well, but this one's going a little bit long, so I'll save it for next episode. But I just appreciate you listening. I appreciate you watching, all that good stuff. Raw Nutrition, Revive MD. I have code Iron Mike for 10% off at both of those companies. Raw Nutrition, more of just your proteins, your pre-workouts, things like that. And then Revive MD is the other that's a lot more on like your vitamins, making sure that your micronutrients, things like that are all in place. They've got joint health stuff, etc. Proud to be a part of both of those teams, growing businesses that are doing really well and put out good quality supplements, and that's what I've always cared about. The same way that I educate on all the just the BS and nonsense that kind of goes around. I want supplements that are high quality, do their job, and don't have a bunch of fluff in them. And so, yeah, I enjoy repping both of those companies. They take care of their people. I was using them before I had a discount code, so I am not just saying anything for a pay cut or a commission, but I do get, obviously, a benefit. So use my code if you need supplements. I'd really appreciate it. Twitch stream and everything is going well. You can follow me there, Iron Mike FPS. Obviously on YouTube, Iron Mike. Following on Twitch is free. Take your email, create an account. Even if you don't watch video games, just create an account with an email. Say you don't want notifications, go follow me. And then same thing with YouTube. Maybe you're never on there, but if you have a Gmail account, then you have a YouTube account. So I'd really appreciate if you could go in, subscribe, both following on Twitch, subscribing on YouTube. They're all free, but it just helps me. I can't even change the youtube.com/ whatever. It's just a bunch of letters and numbers because I think until I get to 100 subscribers on YouTube, I can't even change that. So that's my goal right now is road to 100 subscribers on there. And then I think 100 followers on Twitch gets me to affiliate, which is where I'm able to start receiving donations, subscribers, and things like that, which would be super exciting. So a lot of big stuff coming, really kind of embracing the Iron Mike brand side of things. Growing stuff. I got Iron Mike Fitness LLC, so we're working on transitioning that going into the new year. New websites, ebooks, all sorts of stuff. Good stuff coming, so I'm really excited just to be able to have so many irons in the fire. It's super stressful, but I don't think I've thought I've been busy in the past, and that's not true. This is busy currently, but it's good, man. I'm super excited, and I've never been more motivated just to get quality stuff out for you guys, but just to grow in my craft, fitness, music, gaming. I want to embrace it all and just kind of really settle into who I am, and I think who I've always have been, and just, I've kind of kept the gaming stuff or the music stuff, it's like I can only be fitness if I'm a fitness coach, and, I think that makes me really unrelatable, and so I wanted to really just dive into all facets of, what makes me me. So super excited about that. Thanks so much for tuning into the podcast, and we will see you in the next one.